What's up, nerds? So Black Swan has arrived in Honkai's Star Rail, and she is an absolute powerhouse. I know I'm a little bit late to making a Black Swan guide, but it's better late than never, right? And it gave me some time to properly test out the character and make sure that I really knew what I was talking about before making this guide. So let's get into this. First, I'm going to go over how Black Swan works so that we know how to properly play her and so that we know how to properly build her. Then I'll go into light cones and relics and such after that. Alright, so this part's going to be very, very important because it's important to understand some things about Black Swan in order to be able to build her properly as well as play her properly as well. So let's take a look at something really quick. This is one of Black Swan's main traces here. It increases this unit's damage by an amount equal to 60% of effect hit rate, up to a maximum damage increase of 72%. So, because of this, you're going to want to build Black Swan to have 120% effect hit rate. Let's say you have 120% effect hit rate, and that's the exact amount that you have. So you take 120%, right? And you multiply it by 0.60. This is the equation you would do to find out the percentage of that number being 120. It comes out to 72%. Interestingly, this just so happens to be the max number that we could have here. So that is what you want, at least 120% effect hit rate on her to reach the max amount of damage increase that you can get from this talent. That is not the only reason why you would want that high of an effect hit rate on her. She has abilities that have base chance. By increasing her effect hit rate, you're able to get an increase on this base chance. And it's not a 100% or even 120%, and there are resistances on enemies as well to factor in. So having this high effect hit rate not only makes her kit work properly with this particular trace, but it also gives you the high enough effect hit rate you would need to basically get all of these to land every single time. So definitely keep that stuff in mind. And you see me here on the talent here, and you can see where I'm working on my Black Swan currently. Definitely focus on the talent first. This huge paragraph here, this is the backbone of her entire kit. This talent is so good, it might even be the best single talent in the whole game because it does so much completely on its own. So yeah, in terms of importance, talent, then skill, in my opinion, because of the defense ignore you have here, or not defense ignore, but defense reduction. Then, of course, the ultimate. The cool thing about her ultimate, though, is that even at level 1, it's still really, really good. Because a lot of her ultimate actually doesn't even need the multiplier for it to work well. It gives you so much even at level 1. Now don't forget about her basic attack, because her basic attack isn't just a normal basic attack. It's actually really, really good. It gives you 2 chances to stack Arcana on the enemies. And Arcana is literally entirely what her kit works off of. Getting extra stacks of Arcana on enemies gives you a ton of value. So even in a worst case scenario, when you're stuck in combat and you are forced to use a skill with a healer, and it takes your DOT synergy out because you lose a skill point that you'd normally want to go skill on both your main DPS, DOT characters like Kafka, Black Swan, you don't miss out on too much because you can just use the skill with Black Swan and get 2 stacks of Arcana, which is really, really good. Alright, now I know some of y'all don't really like hearing about how the character works and all that stuff. I just want to know what the relics are, Pancake. Well, some of y'all have already started complaining to me about my Black Swan doesn't deal enough damage. Well, maybe you don't know how the character works, okay? So pay attention, okay? So we're going to go over the talent really quick. We won't go too deep into the skill or the ultimate because they mainly just make the talent work better. We'll briefly touch on it in just a moment, but let's just go over the talent really quick. It's a big paragraph here, but it doesn't take that long. Every time an enemy target receives DOT at the start of each turn, there's a 65% base chance for it to be inflicted with 1 stack of Arcana. While afflicted with Arcana, enemy targets receive when DOT equal to 240% of Black Swan's attack at the start of each turn. This is where most of her damage will be coming from, with some other effects stacked on top of that. Each stack of Arcana increases this damage multiplier by 12%. Very good. Then Arcana resets to 1 stack. That part right there, honestly, sucks ass. She'd be even more powerful if she didn't have that. Maybe even like S++ tier if she didn't have this on there. Arcana can stack up to 50 times. What did you say, ma'am? Yeah, Simulated universe runs are going to be insane with Black Swan. Only when Arcana causes damage at the start of an enemy target's turn, Black Swan triggers additional effects based on the number of Arcana stacks inflicted on the target. When there are 3 or more Arcana stacks, it deals wind DOT equal to 180% of Black Swan's attack to adjacent targets, with a 65% base chance of inflicting 1 stack of Arcana on adjacent targets. Now, when there are 7 or more Arcana stacks, it enables the current DOT dealt this time to ignore 20% of the target and adjacent target's defense. So, Black Swan has a blast damage DOT that hits 3 enemies at once and has a chance to inflict the other enemies with Arcana. She is absolutely insanely strong. Even if you don't get this last part right here to trigger every single time, this is still a very, very powerful effect. She's still incredibly strong. She's a little slower on startup because she has to wait for the enemy to have their turn for all of these Arcana effects to go off. She doesn't deal a ton of damage on her own, but when the enemy has their turn, a lot of effects go off, and she deals a ton of damage on their turn. She is truly a damage over time character, more so than literally any other DOT character up to this point. Now, let's go over these last 2 parts here. This is like some really good trace abilities that she has that work into her talent. When an enemy target enters battle, there's a 65% base chance for it to be inflicted with 1 stack of Arcana. Every time an enemy target receives DOT during a single attack by an ally, there's a 65% base chance for the target to be inflicted with 1 stack of Arcana. This maximum number of stacks that can be inflicted during 1 single attack is 3. So she doesn't even have to do anything for this to go off. This just happens. And she just has to sit there and look pretty, and she's going to be dealing a ton of damage. So, yeah. This last part here, we already went over earlier. This is basically some increased damage if you have her for a high enough effect hit rate. So, this ultimate here does have some extra damage that can be dealt with it. Like I said, I'm not going to super deep dive, but this basically will allow you to get extra stacks of Arcana, and you can get it even at level 1. So it's going to be very, very strong, and of course, this is an AoE effect. So this literally takes effect on all enemies, so that all enemies have increased odds of getting Arcana on them and giving this talent some true horsepower. And the skill basically does a similar effect to that. It helps you get Arcana stacks on enemies, but on top of that, it also has defense reduction on it as well, which is why I consider this to be her second most important ability. Now let's go over this last part here. After using the skill to attack a single target enemy that has wind, shear, bleed, burn, or shock, each of those debuffs respectively has a 65% base chance of inflicting 1 extra stack of Arcana. Forget about this 65% because if you have her built for high enough effect hit rate, this basically becomes guaranteed. So that's basically how she works. Now you know how you might want to build her. Super high effect hit rate, high attack so her DOTs go off with a lot of damage, and a ton of speed so that she can continue to hit the enemies with her skill and give extra stacks of Arcana. The more stacks, the more often, the better. Effect hit rate, attack, and speed. Alright, so let's talk about some light cones for Black Swan. Let's talk about her signature first. It increases the wearer's effect hit rate by 40% when the wearer deals damage to an enemy inflicted with wind shear, burn, shock, or bleed. Each respectively grants 1 stack of profit, stacking up to 4 times. In a single battle, only 1 stack of profit can be granted for each type of DOT just mentioned, and every stack of profit increases the wearer's attack by 5% and enables the DOT dealt to ignore 7.2% of the target's defense. So just keep in mind that, yeah, you can stack this up a bunch of times, and you can get, what is that, like 20% attack off of it. But the DOT, just so you guys are aware, is the only thing that will ignore defense from her. She doesn't get defense ignore when she attacks. It's only on the DOT. But that doesn't really matter. She is still very powerful, and she still gets a lot out of this light cone. It is by far the best light cone for her, hands down. Now, the next best light cone would, in my opinion, be Eyes of Prey. The only problem is this is part of the gacha system, so not everybody has this at Superimposition 5. And at Superimposition 5, it increases the wearer's effect hit rate by 40%. A very common theme is 40% effect hit rate on a good cone for her. And it increases the DOT by 48%. Black Swan deals most of her damage through DOT, She's like very, very DOT focused, and so most of the damage does come from her DOTs. So this is a very, very solid bonus, and it makes her easier to build because that 40% effect hit rate allows you to be able to not have to worry so much about getting the effect hit rate from your substats, for example. So this is by far her second best cone that she could be using. Even at like super in position 3, this cone still has really good value for effect hit rate and DOT, so just keep that in mind. But let's see. So this is not necessarily her like third best light cone, although I'm mentioning it third. I'm mentioning it third because I'm sticking with the theme of 40% effect hit rate, making it easier to build a character. It increases the wearer's effect hit rate by 40% at S5, and when the wearer attacks defense reduced enemies, it regenerates 8 energy. So because she has defense shred built into her own kit, she does get this 8 energy, so don't forget about that. But this is not quite as good of a light cone as the others. It doesn't give you any more actual damage bonus or DOT bonus, and that's what we really want to get out of the cone. In fact, let's take a look at the last cone that I want to mention here. The new cone that came out recently, when the wearer inflicts a debuff on an enemy, which DOTs are debuffs, by the way. She also has defense ignore, so she's going to be able to get this effect on board. You gain stacks of trick. Every stack of trick increases the wearer's damage dealt by 10%, again, stacking up to 3 times, so a total of 30%. This effect lasts for 1 turn. When the wearer's effect hit rate is 80% or higher, it increases the attack by 36%. Now, DOTs scale with attack, so this is a very good cone for her, and you also get some decent damage off of it as well. But keep in mind, this light cone does not have any actual effect hit rate, making it harder to build the character. You get this extra attack, which does help your DOT get more bonus damage, and she does get the damage, when she actually attacks with the cone, but it makes it much harder to build the character because you're relying entirely on substats to be able to get it done, and that's not exactly easy to be able to do. But it is a very good cone if you can get her to 120% effect hit rate without the cone, because 120% effect hit rate is what we need to make her kit work properly. So this is, in my opinion, her third best cone, right behind Eyes of Prey. Of course, we're assuming that everything is at super in position 5. All right, so let's talk about some relics. We're first going to look into the relic sets, and then we're going to look into main stats and substats after that. Now, this is the only 4-piece set I'm actually going to even show you guys, because this is, in my opinion, the one you need to be focusing on now. I know there are technically other options, but you guys, if you're building a DOT team, you really just need to start farming out this set. It's time. It's time to move on to this set. And here's why. The 2-piece gives you attack bonus of 12%, so even the 2-piece bonus can be used on other sets when you're combining 2-piece bonuses together. And the 4-piece, for every DOT the target enemy is afflicted with, the wearer will ignore 6% of its defense when dealing damage to it. This effect is valid for a max of 3 DOTs. Now, Black Swan has defense down built into her kit. This relic set has defense down built into it. You want to lean into what characters are good at. And Black Swan is good at DOTs, and she's good at defense down. So lean into what she's good at and just focus on this set now. Even if you're trying to build other DOT characters, just start focusing on this set now. It's time to switch to this set. Now, as far as planar sets go, you do technically have some options, but I think most players are going to want to focus in on this set right here. The 2-piece bonus gives you an increase of 10% effect hit rate, which makes it easier to build her. Black Swan wants effect hit rate so bad, so just give her the effect hit rate. And meanwhile, the wearer's attack increases by an amount that is equal to 25% of the current effect hit rate, up to a maximum of 25%. Because you're building really high effect hit rate on Black Swan, you basically, this set basically says 10% effect hit rate, 25% attack. That's basically what it says, because that's what you're going to get. Now, with the other sets, Space Sealing Station gives you, 24% attack. If you have her fast enough, that's not going to be very good, especially when this set right here literally is better in every way, shape, and form, and you get effect hit rate off of it. Now, with Firmament, this could be a good set. However, most of her damage comes from her DOTs, not necessarily from, like, damage on her attacks. so I wouldn't really focus on this set either, although it's her second best planar set. I think that people need to really just focus in on the Pan-Cosmic set. It gives you everything that you want. Alright, now let's take a look at some main stats and then some sub-stats after that. Now, I encourage you, I implore you to please make fun of my Black Swan, because my Black Swan is kinda ass right now. I've been getting kinda shafted on the relic drops lately, so I still need to work on this, okay? So please make fun of me, because I want you guys to do better than what you see me with. Now first, let's take a look at the BDSM body here. This is an effect hit rate body. I encourage you to please use an effect hit rate body. She needs high effect hit rate for her kit to properly work. Now with the boots, you need to use speed boots. What are you doing trying to use attack boots? Who do you think you are, God, with the best attack stats rolls on the entire planet? No. Use a pair of speed boots, baby. Now, with the orb, do not, I repeat, do not use a wind damage boost orb like you see me using right now. I have been getting shafted as far as the orb drops go, so please use an attack orb, because that's what you should be using. She is a DOT-based character. DOTs scale with attack. Now, sure, there are some exceptions, like the boots, but that's because you want super high speed so she can lay down those DOTs more quickly. As far as the orb goes, you definitely want to be using an attack orb. And as far as the rope goes, you also want to be using an attack rope. There's not really much differentiation here. It's pretty easy to know what main stats to go for. Alright, now as far as the substats go, there are 3 main stats you want to focus in on, and that is effect hit rate, effect hit rate, effect hit rate. Obviously, I'm kidding, but you want to mostly focus in on effect hit rate. That's the most important substat to go for, and then you want to focus in on attack percent and speed. So effect hit rate, attack percent, and speed. Those are the 3 main substats that you want to go for. That last slot is somewhat of a flex. You can go for things like break effect or, defense percent or HP percent, something that makes the character a little bit more tanky. As far as team building and character synergies go, Black Swan is a DOT-based character, so you're going to want to pair her with at least one other strong DOT-based character, such as Kafka, Guanifin, Sampo, or Luca. And then you're also going to want to pair her together with a very strong DOT support. Ruan Mei is the best DOT support character right now. She doesn't have her own DOT, but she is very, very incredibly strong for DOT-based teams. And if you don't have Ruan Mei, you could use Asta, who was the first very strong DOT support character before Ruan Mei came along. Now, if you are going to run a sustain character, the best sustain character for DOT teams right now is Huohuo. Her ultimate can give you attack bonus, and it can also give you energy. The energy, of course, is valuable to be able to use ults with other characters, which would in turn give you more stacks of Arcana through the other DOTs that pop off from your other characters. And of course, the attack bonus from Huohuo would also give you increased power output on your DOTs, since DOTs scale off of attack. But don't forget that under the right circumstances, Black Swan could actually benefit from having a third DOT character on your team in order to guarantee that she gets those 7 stacks of Arcana and gets that extra power output from her talent. So, like I said, under the right circumstances, you might want to try this out. It might also give you weakness break spread on your overall team. It might not necessarily be the strongest option in every single scenario, but give it a shot under the right circumstances. Now let me know if you're enjoying arguably the hottest character that they've made in this game so far, because girl, look at you, gosh dang, smoking. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next one. If you thought this was helpful or informative, consider leaving a like and subscribe. Peace out.